We have to continue quickly as we're running a bit behind schedule. And we're going to talk with somebody that is betting in the Spanish tech industry. As you know, since Silicon Valley began, our world cities across the globe have been competing to build technological hubs. We have Google Campus in Madrid, one of the few offices of the 6 offices around the world. Barcelona is doing pretty well. And we have somebody here to talk about their bet in Spain, and in particular in Barcelona. We're going to have a fireside chat between Lina Chong. She's the VC at Target Global. As you may know, it's a €100 million pan-European investment firm that is betting in Barcelona, in Spain. And she's going to be interviewed by our own dear Carlos Pierre. He's the CEO and founder of Buddy. As you know, it's room for rents, flatmates, and they have already a Series A and B for a total of $40 million. So with further ado, please, let's welcome Lina and Carlos. Lina? Carlos, welcome.
Okay, so thank you very much for the introduction. Today I'm here to interview Lina from Target Global.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Lina. This is kind of weird because usually I'm the one who it's being interviewed by investors, but this is going to be, I think, the first time that I'm going to interview an investor. And we are, both of us, here today because Target Global, they invested on a company, Buddy, 2 years ago on our Series, in Series B. And you just opened, Target Global, an office in Barcelona, which is great. So tell us a little bit, why Spain? Why did you choose Barcelona?
Yeah. So I started visiting Barcelona effectively around the time when we met. Yeah. Meeting a lot of different companies and founders, and I was, every time I came to Barcelona, I was impressed. I was just consistently impressed. I thought, okay, there's some macro elements at play here, right? There's, it's very, very early days in terms of risk capital being invested in Spain in general. Madrid, Barcelona, obviously being the two key ecosystems. But it's still super early. I mean, Berlin 5 years ago had about $1 billion invested, and according to ASCRI, who knows if these numbers are super accurate, but in 2017 had barely $750 million invested in all of Spain. So I thought, okay, it's very early, and as an early stage investor, I like to go in very early into places. And from my view, the only real way to get to know an ecosystem is to be immersed in the ecosystem. So.
Great.
Yeah, I think there's
Perfect. So more specifically, can you tell us the key indicators that you usually look, and also the key indicators that made you and Target Global choose Barcelona in this case?
Yeah. So there's many indicators, and I can speak also of some of the internal indicators, right? So Target Global, we're a pan-European fund. And for every 10 companies that I would meet in Barcelona, Madrid, also around other areas in Spain, there was at least 1 or 2 out of 10 that consistently went to our investment committee. And so it's not to say, just in Spain alone, right? We're benchmarking this against pan-Europe. And this became a very, very surprising kind of outcome. We didn't know so much about Spain some years ago, right? We have offices in Berlin, in Tel Aviv, in London. We're investing across Europe. And then all of a sudden we saw, Body, TravelPerk, Medico. One of our companies, Doc Planner, came and acquired a business in Barcelona and moved their headquarters there. So I mean, these are some of the internal indicators.
Yes.
And then there's some other indicators just from my observations. I think there's a lot more really conviction-based founders, and I think this is a really important point, right? You're not starting a business for lifestyle. You're not starting a business necessarily to make immediately some cash, but you're following some sort of long-term vision that really takes a lot of faith and a lot of leaps and bounds, right? And a lot of hard work. And this is something I've seen more and more throughout my 1.5 years, kind of stopping into Barcelona and Madrid. But yeah.
So I mean, you have an office in Berlin. You have another office in Tel Aviv.
Yes.
You don't have office yet in Paris or in France. You don't have office in London. Why did you
We do have an
choose-
office in London.
I have one. And eventually I expect to have more in all over Europe. So why did you choose Barcelona? What is interesting? What do you find interesting about the ecosystem here?
Yeah, I think if we were to generalize, right, and this is not to say it's a very black and white picture. When we look at like for example, the Israeli ecosystem, it's fairly well known. There's kind of a brand for each ecosystem. And when we look at Tel Aviv, it was very much tech, deep tech, cybersecurity. When we look at Berlin or around Germany, it's these business models that are really operational and process, right? So e-commerce, there's a lot of that coming out of Germany. And this is a really process strength. In London and UK, it's a lot of fintech, right? And this is kind of, it makes a lot of sense kind of coming from like all the people going into startup and tech where they had their experience before their entrepreneurial life. And in Barcelona and around Spain, what we see is three really interesting elements. I think one is data, another is design, and general creativity on how to solve like business model challenges, right? So these three things I think are very, very distinct in my observations here. As software becomes easier and cheaper to build, what is really going to be the differentiator going forward is things like, you know, are we building a product that not only solves a big challenge, you know, solves a big, massive problem for a massive market, but is it a joy to use, right? And we were seeing this kind of these softer factors really becoming up and center when we're looking at some of the large companies coming out of around the world today.
No, so as you said, here in Spain, probably we are. I mean, I'm not saying that in all the other countries are not like product focused, but here in Spain, probably we are. I don't know if too much, but maybe it's good, too much product focus, right? So one of my questions is also related to being per-revenue, right? Because there has been some controversy about just Buddy also raising 45 million without making any money, right? So why you decided to invest in a company that was per-revenue? And then I have my own opinion, and we can discuss it, but why you decided to invest in
Yeah, I think Body is a prime example of what we're talking about here. I mean, conviction, right? I mean, you could have started another classifieds business, right? The problem is clear, the market is clear. We know a lot of different classifieds businesses out there, but you took an existing kind of what's out there, and then you started looking around the actual experience for the users, right? Things like, okay, when people cohabitate or live together, and you're looking for a spare room, things like trust is an incredibly important piece of that whole experience, right? And this is exactly the kind of challenges that I think actually in the case of Body, you guys did an incredibly amazing job kind of wrapping this all together in one super elegant, very easy to use product. And I think to be pre-revenue, I mean, there's kind of, you can think of, you know, venture capital and company building, right? Just two sides of the same coin. There's a lot of different risks that come along the way. And instead of going first for monetization, I think it's really important, right? Like you were very upfront with us when you were talking to us in the beginning, and all of your investors, like, look, we're just not going to focus on monetization now. There's things that in the product that we need to get like really nailed down first, right? Like the user experience, the onboarding of supply, really the fluidity of the marketplace. In absence of those things, the business model simply won't make sense, right? So, and given that you're a startup, you have limited resources, I think this kind of focus and the pushback also to your investors, you know, you're getting a lot of pressure, right? And at some point you will need to focus on revenue. And I think you've thought about that already 2 years ago. But you were also very adamant in saying there's a step process here of risk mitigation.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I like about all investors, one of them being Target Global, is that also this is something that in Spain probably we are more traditional. So here in Spain, and we were talking about the product, right? We are finding new marketplaces that they try to disrupt an entire industry, right? And when you talk about marketplaces, usually it's also classifieds related, right? So the model of the classifieds nowadays that hasn't changed in the last 10 years, it's basically finding the best business model they can have, right, by offering a poor user experience.
Mm-hmm.
So what we are trying to do is go into a huge market, which is the real estate market, right?
Yeah.
And saying we first going to focus on offering the best user experience,
Right.
and then once we have that, then focus on finding the best business model, which is completely different. Right?
Yes.
So this is something that I think venture capital funds like Target Global and that come, other venture capital funds that come from US, right? They also, it's easy for them to understand because they have seen it before.
Yes.
In Spain, we don't have that many Googles yet,
Yeah.
so it's also hard to believe, which is something that I understand.
Right.
But eventually, to happen, the first thing we need to do is to believe. So.
Yeah, I'd actually love to turn this question around on you, right? I mean, from an entrepreneur's perspective, do you think Spain is ready for the global stage? I mean, what are the key drivers that you're seeing now? Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, there are like probably 4 main drivers to eventually have a billion-dollar business, a successful business, which is global. Mm-hmm. The first one, it's always going to be like solve a huge problem, which is global, basically, not only local. The second one, it's about timings. I think Bali 20 years ago wouldn't work, basically. The third one, it's probably people. I think talent, it's everywhere, and in Spain we had talent 50 years ago, 100 years ago, and we still have talent, and not only in Spain, everywhere. But then, apart from talent, what is needed in order to go fast is experience. So when you mix experience coming from San Francisco, coming from London, coming from companies that they have already done what you want to do, and you mix it with talent, then eventually I think that's going to be key for success. And then the fourth one, it's money, basically, right? So in Spain, I think the 2 last points about talent is already here. What we are seeing is because we have more money from investors, we are also willing to and able to go outside Spain to bring that experience.
Yeah.
And then this just creates this mix between talent and experience is just great. And also it's about investment itself. So
Right.
here in Spain, we have a few really good venture capital funds, but not too many.
Yeah.
And also usually are more focused on seed stage,
Yeah.
right? Not on growth. So it's great that, for example, right now we are seeing Target Global coming to Barcelona. And eventually, I mean, in our case, we have money. We have investors from US. We have Spark Capital with World. Also now Target Global. So I think this is something that we are starting to see.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. So what would you say is still needed, right? So if you were to speak to the founders and investors out there to really put Spain to get them to the next level, right? To get everyone here to the next.
This was me interviewing you, not the other
I know.
way.
I'm curious, right?
Okay.
It's also interesting.
Yeah. So, basically, those 4 points are the most important points. I think what is needed, because talent is already here, good ideas are already here, it's more venture capital coming to Barcelona, coming to Spain, coming to Madrid. And yeah, so I think we are seeing some of that, but eventually we will need to kind of attract this investment from outside too. And then the venture capital that we have here in Spain, it needs to be probably, how I can say it without being too controversial, but probably less conservative. So one of the problems I think is that we really, venture capital funds here in Spain, they don't believe they will find the next Google, so they try to keep it very local.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I think this is changing already. So I think it's going to be needed. And then it's just a circle, right?
I totally agree with that sentiment also. I mean, I think thinking big, dreaming big, right? Really believing that it will happen. I think this is both from the capital side and the entrepreneur side. I think this is a prerequisite, right? Yeah.
So you come to Barcelona, right? You are having this new office. What we can expect from Target Global?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to say right now what will happen in the future, but a few things that we definitely have in mind is, Target Global does investments between 1 and 5 million from the early stage and up to 35 million from growth. We also have a mobility fund that's a little bit more from A and B rounds. So we would love to see 1 to 3 core deals. Those are our core kind of core investment ranges. So 1 to 3 core deals every year. And I would also say, because it's quite an early ecosystem, there needs to be way more push from risk capital. I would also love to do a few, handful of seed deals. I mean, we did an amazing, we made an investment in Mediquo in Guillaume over there, 200K, a little over 200K, right? And these are really like the founders that have, a massive challenge in front of them. They have a big dream, and they want to take a real product-driven approach to solving the solution, and it'll take time. And I think hopefully, we can collaborate, right, with a lot of the local VCs and a lot of other local entrepreneurs to kind of collectively get this engine really, really rolling, right? I would love to see in a couple years, stats around Spain, like there's a couple billions invested here, and there's more bodies, TravelPerks, Globos, right, Wallopops, like all of these guys that, I would just love to see that being a more consistent kind of headliner on the international, on an international scale.
Great. So we have 1 more minute. I don't know if we should go for Q&A.
Yeah, I mean, if we have questions from the audience, that would be interesting. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, maybe there's other investors also in the audience. What do you think?
No questions? If there's no questions, we can have 1 minute of nice music. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
So,
very cool. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you very much.